next thing I knew, I heard this high-pitched air hiss, wind, like when Superman is flying through the air really high, and I am out of my body like a rush, going through a gray tunnel. And I went, "Holy smokes! Where am I? Where am I going? I have no plan. What if I can't get back?"
Our guest today is Dr. Elizabeth Freed, the San Marcos medium. A medium by choice, Dr. Freed's spiritual awakening transformed her journey from executive coach to evidential medium, connecting clients with loved ones and pets on the other side. All proceeds from her work support the Honor Foundation. Dr. Freed, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Well, it is an honor to have you. Thank you again so much for coming on the show and spending some time with us and share some of your knowledge and experiences with our audience. Now, I'm very excited to talk about all your experiences and your journeys. But before we go there, can you talk to us a little bit about your life before your first experience?
Yeah, I was just a regular person out there working and looking at life in terms of not having any particular religious affiliation and not believing in the afterlife or anything. Sort of, it was the attitude of, well, when you're dead, you're done. So let the good times roll. That was it. And grew up in the hippie days, and that was that. And very
Mhm.
conventional, went to school, went to college, went to graduate school, all that kind of stuff, tried to earn a living before anything happened to me that gave me an awakening. I had no particular interest in this at all.
So you basically had no idea or anything that this side of reality existed as far as connecting, leaving your body, or any of this, did you?
No, I did not. And as a matter of fact, I thought it was all nonsense. I didn't believe it. If I couldn't see it, feel it, or touch it, it didn't exist in my mind.
Yeah. A lot of us are like that. I mean, I kind of like came in a little bit awake. I remember having memories from when I was 24 hours old. So I had also an idea that maybe there's something else, but I shut that down. I just want to live my life and be normal. And I'm sure that maybe that's what happened to you after you had that first experience. So why don't you walk us through that?
Well, the first experience I had was an out-of-body experience. I
Mhm.
was taking yoga, and at the time, I think I was maybe 23 years old, and I was in a yoga class, and the yoga teacher was talking about this kind of stuff, but I didn't pay too much attention to it. She suggested I read a book by Jess Stern called Yoga, Youth, and Reincarnation, which I read with some level of interest. But I was living in Ohio at the time. I had a boyfriend in Minnesota who was coming into town to visit with me. And these were the days where there was no answer machine. I long time ago because I am 76. All right, so it was a long time ago. He was coming in, I was a teacher at the time, and my phone kept ringing. I kept trying to get to sleep because I knew he was coming in the next day, and I had to teach that whole day, and yet the phone kept ringing, and I'd fall asleep, and it would wake me up. The last person to call me was my friend Vernon. And Vernon said, "Oh, I gotta come. I gotta talk to you. Gotta talk to you." I said, "Oh, look, Vernon, I can't talk to you. I've got to get to sleep." And I felt bad about that because it sounded like he was in need, but I had to get to sleep. And I hate to let a friend down, but that was just the way it was going to be. So now I'm trying to fall asleep and I am exhausted physically, but my mind is awake. So I'm sitting there and I'm going, "Oh, gee, what am I going to do?" So I thought my yoga teacher had talked about an alpha state, and I did not know what that was. And she said, "You go through it with deep breathing." And so I started doing this, and I felt what I would call a rush that you would get with marijuana. Of course, marijuana those days was a lot lighter than it is today, but that's what I felt like. And I said, well, that was interesting. So big deal. Now I'm, like, bored. I'm lying there, and I still can't sleep. So I said, "Oh, I read that book, Yoga, Youth, and Reincarnation, about connecting with the universal mind." Wonder what that's about. So I am going to connect with the universal mind. And I started concentrating on that. And then all of a sudden, my head became like a citizens band radio, like truckers use. All of a sudden, I'm hearing this all this conversation like a radio. And I wind up dialing into these two guys in New York doing a review of a Broadway play. And I'm lying there going, what? And then I said, "Mm, this is too much for me. I'm changing the channel." And I just stopped it. So now I'm kind of like, oh, what am I going to do? And twiddling my thumbs. And I hear some kids outdoors talking outside my apartment building. And I'm still trying to fall asleep. And I can't. And so I said, I wonder if I could imagine energy leaving my body from this part, and I'm focusing between my eyes. I don't know that this the third eye chakra. I'm just concentrating there and imagining energy leaving my body. The next thing I knew, I heard this high-pitched air hiss, wind, like when Superman is flying through the air really high, and I am out of my body like a rush, going through a gray tunnel. And I went, "Holy smokes. Where am I? Where am I going? I have no plan. What if I can't get back?" So I got so scared, pulled myself back in my body. And I sat there and I was like, "What that? That was so scary." And I was really hot. I was afraid to touch myself for fear it's going to burn my fingers. So I sat there and I said, "Well, that was interesting. I wonder if I could do that again." So I did it again, and this time, my bed started shaking, my whole room started shaking, and I was out again. And I went, "You fool, you have no plan, you don't know where you're going. You might not be able to come back." And bam, I pulled myself back in my body, and I was like, "What did I just do?" So I said, "I better get up." I got up, I pulled out my journal, and I wrote down the date, and I wrote down 2:45 AM. And I described every detail of what happened to me. I said, "If I don't write this down right now, I'm never gonna believe it happened to me." And then the next day, my boyfriend came, and I told him all about it, and I was terrified to fall asleep because I thought, "Oh my god, what if this happens to me again?" So he's there for a week, and then he leaves, and then my friend Vernon calls me. I have to tell you, Vernon is Black, and he calls me up, and he said, "Oh," I said, "Vernon, I'm so glad to talk to you. I have to tell you what happened that night you called me." He said, "No, I have to tell you what happened to me." I said, "Okay, do tell." He said, I wanted to see you." And I had said to him, "Listen, Vernon, I can't see you. You keep me up all night yammering, and I don't have time for that." He said, "I called you, and I had been drinking, but I had not been drinking that much. I came into the farmhouse." He was living in some hippie farmhouse. And he said, "I walked into the house. All of a sudden, this wind rush comes through the house, spinning all the pictures around. Everything was moving." He said, "I'm a Black man, but I turned white in that moment." I said, "What time did this happen?" He said, "Around 2:45 AM. So I said, "Vernon, I think that was me coming to check on you." And it was really astounding. This was more than just a coincidence, okay? So I was totally freaked out about that and told every living, breathing soul that this had happened to me. And I started reading books about it. And then I went to Minnesota to live with my boyfriend at the time. He had some friends there who I had told about it. One of his friends' wife said, there is a man that is from England. His name is Dr. Baker, and he is going to be lecturing on astral projection by doing it through lucid dreaming. You might be interested." I said, "You bet I'm interested." So I went and I attended that lecture. This man said, "You can astrally project when you sleep. We all astrally project, and you can do it safely when you sleep." And he gave you guidance and this and that. But he was also taking appointments. And I needed to know if what happened to me was legitimate. So I made an appointment with him. He was a totally weird guy. So I went to his hotel to pay him his consultation fee and this appointment. And he comes to the door dressed in like a robe and slippers. I'm going, "Oh, crap." All right, let's see what's going to happen here. So I sat down and I said, look, I got to tell you what happened to me. I need to know if it was legitimate. Can you please explain it? And I told him everything I did. He said, you had an out of body experience, but never, ever do it like that again. I said, why? He said, because you did it when you were wide awake. You were completely conscious. He said, only the most experienced and trained yogis can do that safely. He said, because if you do that and you do it repeatedly, your body will get used to releasing this astral entity. Then you become an available entity for any other traveling astral entity that could then enter your body. And then people will think you're schizophrenic and crazy. Now, that just scared the wits out of me because the movie The Exorcist had just come out. So I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not interested anymore. And so I put it to bed. Now, in doing more research and taking courses and so forth, what he told me was a little bit over the top. That's not necessarily true. And there are ways to do it other than through lucid dreaming. But he scared the wits out of me. And that was in my 20s. Then years go by, and I'm now about 38, and I had about 3 miscarriages. It was a very sad time, and I just dealt with it. A friend of mine who was a bona fide psychic had been watched by people at Johns Hopkins since the time she was a child. She was now teaching a course in Columbus, Ohio, and she asked me to visit her at her training center. She said, my students are saying that they feel an energy pull somewhere here, a specific place in the training center. You're the most practical, honest person I know. You'll tell me whether you think it's real or not. So I said, sure, I'll come over. So I came over and she said, I am going to have Deborah, one of her trainees, do a protection prayer around you before we do this. So I said, okay. So Deborah comes to me and she said, pray to whatever God you believe in for protection. And then I will have her do this with you. I said, Deborah, I don't really pray. I'm not religious. I don't really know. And I'm pretty irreverent at the time. Okay. So I say, okay, God, show me what's real. Show me what's bullshit. That was my prayer. That,
That's
my
a very
friend,
interesting way to pray.
totally irreverent. Okay.
Very direct.
I had a direct line. See, I didn't think I needed anybody in between. So she puts her hands over my hands and she said, do you feel any kind of pull? And I said, nah, I don't feel anything. She puts her hands under mine. Do you feel any kind of pull? I said, nah. She said, okay, that's it. I'm done. Now, a week goes by. I'm on the telephone with a client. And at that time, I was a compensation consultant. And I was talking to GE Aircraft Engine, making an appointment for a meeting with them in Cincinnati. And this woman is talking to me, and I'm looking at my computer while I'm talking to her, and I'm noticing the room has taken on a golden glow. And it's like, when you're doing something and you happen to notice something odd, but you have to focus on what you're doing. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And as I'm talking to her, then as I'm continuing to say, yes, I think 2:00 on the 15th sounds doable. I feel this overwhelming power of love, unconditional love surround me. And then I feel a gentle squeeze on my shoulder. I thought I had heard the door open, and my husband had been out hunting that morning. I thought he was coming in. I thought he might have been behind me and that it was him who squeezed my shoulder. I went to turn around, and I was slightly annoyed because I thought, here I am talking to a client. You're walking in when I'm talking to a client. What's wrong with you? So I gotta turn around, wheel around to say, just a minute, I'll be with you in a minute. I'm on the phone. Just as I wheeled around, there was no one there. And the lady on the phone said, are you okay? I said, yeah. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Thank you." And got off the phone and I thought, the light turned back to normal. The feeling of love dissipated. And I thought, what in the world was that? So as I pondered it, I had a friend who was a born again Christian. I called her up and I said, "Candace, I have a question for you. Have you ever had a religious experience?" And she said, "I have. Why?" Then I told her what happened to me. And she said, "Did you pray recently, Elizabeth?" I said, Candace, I don't pray." "Mm-mm." "Wait, as a matter of fact, I did." I told her my prayer and what I said. And her response to me was, "Well, I guess God showed you what was real." And that was the second time that had happened to me, and it didn't leave me frightened. It left me it's like I yearned to feel that level of compassion, that unconditional love, but I was 38, I'm 76 now, and I hadn't felt it again until recently when I connected with one of my angels who looked upon me in that way and gave me that kind of feeling. So it was very interesting. So consequently, after these experiences, I took some courses from the Monroe Institute on how to do astral projection and other courses over the course of 10 years. I might take a course every couple of years because I wanted to be with like minded people because you start telling people about this and they think you're nuts. But I never really pursued it because at that point I was an executive coach. I worked with corporate clients. I was not about to tell anybody what it was that I was doing or they'd think I was wacko. I couldn't afford to have corporate clients think of me, and I'm an award-winning, recognized executive coach, and I come in, I start spouting this stuff off, and they think, "Oh, man, this woman's a total nutcase." So, I kept it all to myself. Now that I am essentially retired, I had the time to pursue my interests in more depth. I saw a course over a year ago being offered that was called Mediumship Toolkit through the Monroe Institute. And as I read about it, that you don't have to be a medium, you can learn how to do this. And I thought, my goodness, that's interesting. Yes, I am not a natural born medium. I am now a medium by choice. And I learned that anybody can become a medium. It basically involves three things: education, meditation, and practice, practice, practice. And that's it. You've got to be committed to that. And I can't tell you how many courses. Over the course of the year, I've probably taken 8 courses. And now I'm signed up. Even still, you're always in development. I just signed up for a year-long intensive course. My thing was, I need to be consistently accurate between 70 and 100%, which I am. I still wanna be better. And so I continue my development. I think it's very important. I'm a lifelong learner anyway, so that's basically my story on how I got here. Long story, but
Wow. A beautiful story. I mean, I'm sorry that you were scared away from trying to do out of body or astral projection from the beginning. I believe that the movie industry has had a lot of influence in how people new to spirituality interpret certain things. I know that at first I was not afraid per se when certain things started to happen to me, not because of the scary movies and things like that. But it was my religious background that was holding me back. And I
Mhm.
struggled with that a lot. I was raised Catholic. It was very strict, but I appreciate it. Now, you mentioned that you had first experience in your 20s, early 20s, and
Mhm.
then that friend called you and you literally said that specific prayer to God. Was it closer to your 30s, late 30s? So I'm assuming that sometime happened in between that.
Well, nothing happened in between that experience I had
Mhm.
when I was in my 20s and the experience I had when I was about 38 or
So you just
39.
put it in a box, the first experience, and
Right.
tucked it away.
I
Yeah.
went to graduate school, got my PhD,
Mhm.
started working in a corporation. That was my
Mhm.
focus. Who had time for
Yeah.
that? Well, I said, "Okay, so you could go." Here's the deal. I
Mhm.
said, "So, what's the big deal with out of body experience? Could be fun, could be adventuresome, but is it helping anybody? My whole purpose in life is to be of service. And I didn't see how the flying about was going to be of service to people other than my own curiosity. So I thought I didn't see any purpose in it at that time. Okay, that changed.
Mhm.
As I understand as a medium, my intention always is to provide empowering and healing messages for the client's greatest good. That's my only objective and my intention. So, that along with all fees that I earn from this go to the Honor Foundation, which supports a military organization that helps special military operators such as Navy SEALs, Marine Raiders, Delta Force, Green Berets, Army Rangers, those folks transition from the military to the civilian workforce. I had given them my time and my talent as a coach to help them prepare, to interview, to know how to make this transition, but I had not given them my treasure. Because I am now retired and on a fixed income, while I would like to give them more, I have limited income that's disposable for me to give away. And I thought, well, the best thing I could do is to take this new skill that I've developed and any fees that I generate from that I have donated directly to the Honor Foundation. So when people go to my website, they pick how long a session they want, they click on a link, they donate directly to the Honor Foundation. I never see the money, and they get a reading and a tax write-off. My organization gets supported to expand, and I feel like I'm making a contribution in that way. So that's how that works.
Well, that is a beautiful mission. That's amazing. My husband, he's a veteran. He did the
Mhm.
Marines and the Army, so I've experienced firsthand the transition period between active duty and civilian status. But yeah, the deployments and all that, it takes a toll on them. So thank you so much for doing that from a
It
military
does.
one. So I am assuming that was your motivation to become a medium by choice, which is how you call yourself, because you mentioned that you didn't have these abilities before, and you chose to learn, and you chose to offer this service to not just the Honor Foundation, but other people too. They can connect with their not only their loved ones, or you can get messages not just from their loved ones on the other side, but also pets. How did that come about?
Oh, it was very interesting how they came back. Well, and I wanna clarify something. I don't necessarily act as a medium for special operators. I act as a medium for anybody, and
Mhm.
whatever they pay goes to the Honor Foundation.
Beautiful.
Now,
Thank you for clarifying.
as part of my marketing efforts, I started doing psychic fairs. Now that's really putting myself out there. I had been waiting for 6 months, and I thought, "Well, you're either," and I was my accuracy was pretty high, and I thought, can you do this? Because it takes a lot out of me because I have to practice, I have to meditate and get in the right frame of mind, and so I went to the psychic fair, and normally, I might do 1 or 2 a day, that's all I can handle at my age, but here, I had to do 8 in the day, and that was really hard, plus, it's very noisy, so it was very stressful to do that, and while I was doing that, a woman came up to me and said, "Do you ever talk to departed pets?" And I said, "No, not really. I've never done that before, but pets are sentient beings. I would imagine I could do it, but I don't feel comfortable charging you to do it. I think I'm going to pass." After that engagement was over that day at the fair, I thought, this is obviously important to people, and I ought to figure out whether I can do this or not. Logically, I should be able to do it. So I went out on Facebook and I said to my Facebook friends, look, I have this request. If any of you would like to connect with your departed pet, let me know. No charge. I need to get some practice in to see if I can do this. So I had 8 people respond, and I was able to connect with 7 of the 8. And I have 2 very interesting stories that I can share with you, and then one that came from a live one, which I'll tell you about also.
Yes, please, go ahead.
The first one was a friend of mine that I knew from Ohio. She now lives in, Louisiana. So, we were talking, she said, "I'd like for you to connect with my border collie." So I said, "Okay." So I went and I did my connection, and I said, "Bella is black and white." She said, "That's right." I said, "Bella is showing me a red ribbon and a bell around her neck. Would you understand that?" And she said, "No, Bella never had a ribbon and a bell around her neck." So I said, "Okay, let me go back and ask for more information." I said, "Bella is showing me a ball of yarn. How odd for a dog." She said, "Oh, you know what? I think you're connected with Bella the cat." I said, "Are you telling me that you had dog and a cat named Bella?" She said, "Oh, Bella the cat, that was 50 years ago. She died 50 years ago." And so I was drawn to my glasses while she's talking to me, and I said, "Bella was calico." And she said, "That's right." So I said, "Let me see what Bella has to say." I said, "Bella's talking about New York or something." And she said, "We had Bella in Washington. We She lived with us when we were in Washington, DC. We lived there. That's East Coast, New York, Washington, DC, East Coast. I'll take it." I said, "Okay, let's see what she has to say." And then I went, "Oh my god." I said, "Bella is not happy with you." And I don't normally deliver any negative message, but this was so funny that I couldn't contain myself. I said, she said, "Really? What do you mean?" And I said, she says, "You have a lot of nerve giving a dog my name."
Oh, no.
So we laughed about that. Now, the other one that was very interesting involved a colleague of mine from the Honor Foundation, also a coach from the Honor Foundation. She raises pet donkeys. And I went, "Oh my god, donkeys. I don't know much about donkeys." And I said, "All I can think of is mules, mules. I don't know from donkeys." So I said, "All right, donkey's name is Winston." So I said, "Winston was brown." She said, "No." And I go, "I don't know what color donkeys are." So I just she said, "No." So I said, "All right." And then I went, "Oh no." I said, "I'm sorry, Michelle. I am getting the corny image of a donkey wearing a sombrero with the ears coming out of the hat. I'm making this up in my head. I'm not connected. I'm sure I'm not connected. This is crazy." She said, "Oh, I get that." I said, "You too." See, it's not up to me to interpret, but I just thought I had gone offline and just went into my head. She says, "I used to dress him up in costumes all the time." So that was Spirit's way of giving me the symbol that the donkey would be dressed in costumes. Okay. So then I said, "Okay, let me see further. Now, watch my mouth right now." And this happened. So my lip went up like the whole Elvis Presley lip snarl kind of thing. I said, "Would you understand something going on with your donkey's mouth or gums or teeth?" And she said, "You're in the right place. You want me to tell you?" I said, "No, don't tell me. I'm an evidential medium. I need to provide you with the evidence. You don't tell me. You just tell me if you understand right now." So then, because I use, and I have to interrupt here, I use a variety of clairs. I see, clairvoyance. I hear, clairaudience. I sense, clairsentience. And I just know, claircognizance. I'm sitting there and all of a sudden, loud as can be, I hear in my head, "Tobacco." I go, "Tobacco?" I said, "Would you understand why he's saying tobacco?" And she says, "Yep. Want me to tell you?" I said, "Are you telling me your donkey chewed tobacco?" And she said, "No, he did not chew tobacco." "Do you want me to tell you?" I said, "Look, You're the one who interprets this, not me. You know what he's talking about. I have no idea. She said, my donkey died of oral cancer. Now,
Wow.
as you may know, many people who chew tobacco get oral cancer. And that spirit plays charades with you sometimes. They don't give you a direct answer. They give you symbols. They do this. It's now like, I'm a donkey and I died of oral cancer. He doesn't say it that way. He shows me in different ways. So then I said, now he's saying 25. Do you understand that? And she said, yes, he was about 25 when he died. I said, "No, 5. What is 25? 5." She said, "Yes, there were 5 donkeys in the herd." I gave her the message that he's doing very well. He wasn't upset that she had euthanized him, that was the right time to go, and he was very happy now and all that kind of stuff that she needed to hear because had agonized over whether or not to euthanize him. But I have to tell you something. I then decided I was gonna take an animal communications course. I thought, if I'm gonna say I'm doing this, I should get a little more formal education other than my own practice stuff that I was applying everything with humans to animals. So I took an animal communication course, and she has you speak to live animals, but she has you do it through a picture. It never was in the animal's presence, right? Well, last weekend, I was in Chicago. And I went to visit my friend's daughter, and she had this big black cat. And I looked at this cat and I wanted to pet the cat. And the cat was being just slightly shy. There was 2 cats. One brother's name was Mo, and the other one's name was I can't remember the other one's name. Mo just decided he was gonna jump on my lap, but in doing so, with his claws to use me as a springboard. And I wasn't prepared for that. She had to take him away, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, "No." He didn't know. I said, "It's okay." And then I am applying all the things I was taught in my class with this cat. I'm saying, "You're such a beautiful boy," and I'm telling him how great he is and this and that. Now he's jumped on the counter, and I'm looking at him, and I'm petting him. "You're so beautiful and regal, such a good boy." And I'm saying things like this to him. And he looks at me like this. Hard to explain. Gives me this look. I said, "Do you wanna tell me something?" And he said something to me. I turned to his owner, my friend's daughter. I said, "Mo says his brother steals his food." She looked at me like this.
Oh,
That has been a persistent problem in this house. She tells me the whole story about how the other cat steals his food, and there's been a real struggle. How would I know that? No way. It was like
amazing.
shock, such a shock. Yeah.
Wow.
So getting that's very specific evidence. I didn't say to her anything about this cat. Nothing.
Mhm.
And I certainly didn't know about Winston the donkey having oral cancer, but the spirit told me. Now, recently, I had another experience that was some of these things are so funny. You're talking to someone who's lost a spouse, and even if something is said humorously, you have to be very respectful of who it is that you're talking to. I met this woman and I was doing a reading for her, and we determined that it was her husband who had come through. I had given her a whole list of evidence. This person had passed between the ages of 50 and 60. He was tall, he was rugged looking, he played the guitar. He did, I went through like several things, and I have to get all yeses, or if I get a no, that's okay. But she has to be able to know that she knows who I'm talking to. She goes, that is my husband. I said, he died suddenly, and I'm getting a feeling that it was in this area like a heart attack. She said, yes. So then I gave her all the messages that he had for her. The first thing I do is I connect. I then make sure I give them 5 to 7 pieces of evidence so they know who I'm connected to. Sometimes I have to give more so we can get clear on it. Once they know exactly who I'm connected to, then I share a memory that only the 2 of them know. I said to her, You two like to go camping, but not in a tent camping. This is some kinda, like, camper out on some grass or something, and you would build a fire at night, and that was one of your favorite things to do." She said, "There's no way you would have known that. We had a camper on our property, and that's what we did every weekend." But that's the memory he shared with me, okay? So, we got through her so fast that I said, "We have some time. Are there any questions you'd like to ask him?" And she said, "Well, I'd like to know if there was anything that precipitated this heart attack." I said, "You don't mean that somebody had a hand in its death?" She goes, "Not exactly." I said, "Were you there?" And she said, "No, he was out of town, but he was with his son, and his son has mental illness." I said, "You're thinking that his son may have created stress or something for him that may have precipitated." She goes, "It's been bothering me for a long time, for the past couple of years, and I always wondered." I said, "Well, I'll ask him." And so I did. And he said, "No, darling." I said, "Did he call you darling? Not darling, but darling." She said, "Yes." He said, "No, darling. Nothing caused this. My ticker just ran out of tox." And
Oh,
I started laughing. I said, "I don't know how to tell you this," but he just says, "My ticker just ran out of tox. My heart just ran out of beats." I have never heard that expression before in my life. There are 4 cardiologists in my family. I said, "Have you ever heard my ticker just ran out of tox?" They said, "Never."
wow.
So I knew. She said when I said that to her, she said, "Oh my god, that would just be something he would say." It's just his sense of humor. But that's one of my funniest things.
That is funny. I never heard that before, at least not put that way. That's amazing. You have an amazing gift, and the world is fortunate to have you sharing this gift with the world. Now, I wanted to ask you, you need to have evidence of who is coming through, and the person who you're giving the message to has to say, okay, this is the person that you're connecting to, this, that, and the other. So I'm assuming that is why you call yourself evidential medium.
That is right. That's right. I don't rely there are psychic mediums, and what they
Hmm.
do is they're getting the information from the client as to what's going on as they're
Hmm.
making the connection. I don't do that. I connect directly to the spirit, and they're telling me everything. I'm the channel in which it's coming through, like the radio or the TV or whatever, and then the client is interpreting what that's supposed to mean. I don't interpret it. Okay? It's not up to me to do that because how could I know? I just say what I see or what I hear or what I feel,
Yeah.
sometimes what I smell, but, you know, but so when you get though that's more than just coincidence, and how could I
Hmm.
even know this? I had no idea. I just
Yeah.
listened.
I always say that I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Everything happened for a reason.
Mhm.
You just at the right place at the right time. And in your case, they're giving you the information for you to relate and verify. I do believe that our loved ones are always with us once they depart. It was explained to me that life is like a car ride. When you're born, you get in the car, you drive, and you may take certain detours. Once you get to your destination, you leave the car, you go back to the spirit world. Now, along those same lines, I did want to ask you, do we or the people that want a reading from you, want to receive a message, do they have a saying on who comes forward, or do they get a message from the person that they need to hear the most?
Okay, the answer is yes and yes, yes and no.
Okay,
Here's what
do
I
tell.
tell I have no control over who comes forward. So I'm going to give you some evidence. Many people want a family member to come forward. So I do a reading that's either a half an hour reading or a 30-minute reading typically. So in the half hour reading, I say I have no control. Whoever is going to come forward, I can guarantee you will be for your greatest good. Even though you may have someone in mind, You need to keep an open mind. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, a coworker, a teacher, a former lover, your mailman, your kid's mother. I have no idea, but you have to listen to the evidence. We're gonna write it down as I give it to you, and then you're going to tell me, are you aware of someone who passed, of a woman between the ages of 40 and 50? Just tell me yes, no, I'm not sure. And then we'll go to the next piece of evidence until we get a picture of who this spirit really is. And there are some people who said, man, I knew right away who this was. Other people, they struggle, they don't know who it is. That happens. That's in reading number one. If they do that hour reading, then I say, okay, you can ask for someone to come forward. But again, I can't guarantee you they will, but you can ask, and I will ask for them to come forward. They may choose not to at this time because it's more important for you to hear from someone else. It's determined that, but I will do what I can. But I can never guarantee that. And then I will also tell you that sometimes the energy's off. Maybe every 10 or so readings, I'm not connecting or they're not ready. They're like closed. And it's really nobody's fault. I say, look, it's nobody's fault. The energy or something was just off. So here's what we're going to do. We will reschedule at another time. You know, maybe we spend 10, 15 minutes, nothing happened. So I say, okay, we'll reschedule for another time and it'll be just fine. And it always is. Just that day, it just didn't work for one or the other or both of us. It
Yeah.
happens. I used to feel you so want to help whoever it is that's come to you, and you really wanna give them what they need at the time, but you don't have control over this, not really. So, what you do is you do the best you can, and I don't beat myself up over it. I'm a human. I'm in human
Mhm.
form at this point, and I do what I can, and we reschedule. It's pretty simple.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Now, have you connected to someone's spiritual team?
What do you mean spiritual you
Spirit
mean guides?
guides and angels.
No.
Okay.
I never have. I noticed that I have my own spirit guides and
Mhm.
my own angels, but I don't connect with other people's angels or spirit guides. That's
Okay.
up to me, that's a personal thing, that's up to them.
Mhm. Now, going back to our loved ones in the audience, maybe people that are grieving over the loss of a loved one, whether it's a family member, a pet, a very close friend, whoever, and they are wondering, are they still with me? What can I do to connect with you? What advice would you give them?
Well, part of that is meditating and having an open heart, but I can tell you, our loved ones are around us all the time and they know everything that's going on. They see everything, they know everything, and it's like, do they see you taking a shower? No, they're not in there while you're taking a shower. Okay. They give you privacy. But in terms of major events in your life, they are present. A lot of times, people, when they've lost somebody, they talk to them. I want to assure people that their loved one hears them. What you wanna do if you're that person is to look for a sign that that loved one is hearing you. Now, if there is, like, a favorite flower or a favorite song that you hear or a certain bird or whatever, look for that, or you may even smell their smell might come in the room. They're there. That's their signal to let you know they're there. Sometimes they come in the form of a dream. Oftentimes, what I tell clients is if you wanna have a communication with a departed loved one and you're having difficulty connecting, speak to them that night. Tell them what you want, and chances are you'll either get the answer in a dream or you'll just know in the morning because they will have told you. That's how it works.
Thank you so much for that. Now, I wanted to ask you directly when you were in your early 20s, before your experience, before your out of body experience, you had no clue that this world existed. You had your experience, you were interested, you were curious about it, somebody came and talked you out of it, scared the daylights out of you. Then you put it in a box, put it away, and then open that box again in your late 30s. What advice would you give someone in your shoes that is afraid of exploring that side of themselves, whether it is due to their current job or family members or just afraid of being out in the world? What advice would you give that person?
I would say to them that if they're interested, not to be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's ways of protecting yourself, of seeing yourself as the light and knowing, because people say, well, you could bring in an evil spirit. No, doesn't happen. Okay. Um, that's not the case. I would say seek and find like-minded people that you can share this with. Do not try to convert people that are religious. They have their own, one of my teachers says, their own BS belief system. I may tell people what I do. Now, I am less concerned about what people think of me professionally. So I tell people, but as soon as I get the step, you start to read that. The smarter thing to do is, rather than to make your big announcement to the world, seek out people who appreciate your gifts and your interest. There are lots of spiritual churches or meetup groups that you can align yourself with to feel like you are embraced. There's no need to force your experience on anybody else, because people come to this when they are ready. I am telling you, I wouldn't have been ready before my first out of body experience. I would have said, oh, that's such crap. I just wouldn't have. And you could have told me this and I wouldn't have believed you. So when it's like, when the student is ready, the teacher shows up, I guess is what happens. It's all a matter of readiness. I I had a very interesting thing happen. I decided I wanted to let the world know what I was doing. I went out on LinkedIn and I wrote an article and I talked about how this happened to me and what I was doing with the money for the Honor Foundation and everything. And I got mixed responses. So, because I said, well, you mentioned you were a model. All right. I've done modeling also. When I turned in my late 60s, I decided I wanted to represent the actively aging senior who doesn't have to color her hair and can still look good as an older woman without coloring your hair. So I wanted to do print work and commercials and that kind of thing. So I made an announcement to my group of people that I am reinventing myself. I'm moving toward retirement from executive coaching, and I'm going to be exploring this. Well, a lot of people say, boy, Elizabeth, you're putting yourself out there. When you talked about putting yourself out there as a podcaster, they said you're putting yourself out there as an actor. That's really being brave. And so I looked at it as, I have nothing to lose. I'm already successful in my own field. So big deal. All right. So now I want to go into mediumship. Now that's another story. So I write another article that says, reinventing myself once again. And I let people know, and this time I got mixed reviews. Either people said nothing or they were positive. But here was a very interesting thing that happened. I am on a website, I don't know, Soul Search or something like that. There you get leads from people that are interested in your services. This woman writes me, and her email is concernedcoach@gmail.com, a bogus Gmail, and some bogus phone number. And she writes to me and says, I feel compelled to let you know that I think you're doing a major disservice to the coaching community by calling yourself an executive coach and a medium, plus an actor, no less. Our work is very serious, and this just demeans it and ruins it for other coaches. But of course, she comes in anonymously to say this to me. And my response to that, Of course, I couldn't respond to her because it was a bogus email. I thought, well, Tootsie, you must think I have a heck of a lot of power that me as one person is ruining the entire coaching industry because I say I'm a medium. I'm
Wow.
so sorry for you.
Wow.
It was really funny. I just said, as Oprah says, there are always the haters out there. So I just had to send her love and laugh and just remove her email from mine so I would never see it again. I had a similar thing happen to me when I went into acting. This was very interesting. People are strange. They're very interesting. I had posted on LinkedIn what I was doing with the acting, and this woman identified herself. And she said, I think it's a real travesty that a woman with your credentials and background needs to rely on your looks to promote herself. I had no idea who this woman was. So I looked her up. She was maybe 40 years old. She was beautiful. And I thought, man, oh man, are you projecting? Because I was a late bloomer. I was this really homely kid and not very pretty middle, in my I said, I never had the problem of people not listening to me because I was too beautiful. But I figured it out that people didn't take her seriously because she was so attractive. So she was projecting her issue onto me. And I just said, "Oh my goodness, this is the kind of thing that happens when you do
Crazy.
something that is not in line with what people want or convention, you're just gonna have to expect that and have a thick skin." That's all I
Mm,
can say.
that's true. There's always people that are going to be supportive of not just joining the spiritual community, but with every single decision that we make in our lives. People are going to agree. People are not going to agree. They're going to disagree with that. And it's easier said than done, but try not to take things so hard, so personal,
Well,
Just
there's the 4 agreements,
mhm,
don't take things one of them is don't take things personally.
there.
I did not take it personally. I have compassion for that person that I hit a nerve somehow, somewhere. That person has pain in their heart that
Mhm.
causes them to lash out like that. I don't say, "Oh my god, what am I doing wrong?" No, I'm doing my own thing and I'm happy. I'm sorry
Yeah.
that it brought them unhappiness, but not my problem. So,
You're like,
at
"You do
least
you, honey, I'll do me."
right.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
simple. That's beautiful. Dr. Freed, it's been an honor, a pleasure having you on today. If people wanted to connect with you and get a reading with you, where can they go to connect with you?
They go to my website, which is www.elizabethfried, and that's Elizabeth with a Z, and
Mhm.
Fried is spelled like fried, Fried, elizabethfried.com/medium.
Do you have any projects right now going on that you would like for the audience to know about?
Actually, no. I am trying what I'm planning to do my project is getting as healthy and fit as I can physically so that I have the energy to do more of this because it does take energy.
Mhm.
And then my other project is this course that I've enrolled in, which is a year-long course that is really going to be intensive, and so I can bring even more to my clients. That's my objective.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And before we leave, do you have any positive messages for the audience? Any last word that you would like to leave us with?
The greatest thing that I can do for you is to be of service. And that's my purpose in life. If I can help bring you closure or add meaning to your life as a result of connecting with a departed loved one, I would ask that should you seek a medium, be open to anything that comes through because I can assure you it's for your greatest good. As long as you're connected with an ethical medium. So make sure that whoever you connect with is somebody that's legitimate.
And that can be another whole podcast right there. an hour-long podcast about that. But thank you again so much, Dr. Fried, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure having you on today.
Thank you for inviting me. I hope that your
Thank you.
podcast continues to grow and be successful.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.